Well, I was going to do this today with Maria Platusik, who's running our brand clarity session room and the Entrepreneur Experience Campus. And we're having another technology issue trying to get her into Restream. So if she shows up and she can get in, I'll merge her into the meeting here and we'll hear from her as well. We did the Invincibility Dojo this morning with Brian Muka, and it was amazing. And I really felt a sense of acceleration from that. And then we ran into the More Money Now room that I run, and we talked about IT, which was kind of funny because, oh, there she is. I'm going to bring her on. So she's right here. I'm going to bring her on. I'm going to keep going, and then we'll bring you in. So we were in the. So what I'm saying is, we were in the More Money Now room after the dojo, and we were talking about IT because we have somebody who's involved with us now, who's an expert in IT. And the conversation was about fighting with the computers and fighting with the technology, and you can't get in the damn Restream thing. I thought this is such a perfect story to open this.
Yep, here we are. I made it. I felt like because you needed to initiate and make it live, then I was able to sign on. I think that was the culprit.
Well, it's not supposed to be that way.
Apparently not, but I felt like that's what was the reasoning behind it. So.
Well, we had a major Restream breakdown 2 weeks ago where Gail and Brian couldn't even get in the room at all. And then, whenever these things happen, I automatically blame Google.
I think that's fair.
I'm like, did you guys do a Chrome update?
That's fair. I think it's fair.
It's got to be Google's fault.
Yes.
Because they're in charge of everything. So we're talking about branding, and I have been involved and care about branding and understand the importance of branding since, and I was thinking about my stories around branding, and it goes back to 1989. That's when I first realized the power of branding. And I have a funny story around it, which I'll get to. But when did you first realize how important branding is?
Honestly, if I think back now, it's when you're a child, how it influences everything. Commercials were everything. And when you saw the ad, it made you want the thing. So it influences you at such a very young age. Now, almost 25 years into this space, I realize there's a lot of really great branding and messaging out there, and a lot of terrible branding and messaging out there. And as a brand strategist and designer, I don't want the job of telling you that it's terrible. I want you to figure that out on your own and then come to me, because that is a role that I wish not to take on. Because it's not a nice role to say it's not working. Majority of my clients come to me when they know it's not, and that's an easier battle.
That's actually makes a lot of sense. And this actually ties to my story. So I went to work for my mom, my dad, and my grandma's mom and pop. So they sold children's accessories, children's clothing to retail stores. And I went into the business over the summer, and my dad's like, hey, you're not figuring it out in DC. I was out there for a couple of years trying to make it in DC and go to law school or some fancy economics school or whatever. And he's like, come back over the summer and help us out. And I went and helped him out. And I stayed for a few years, and I turned that company into a professional distribution company that started to employ all these people, and it just took off. And one of the problems was the logo. And it wasn't just the logo. My grandmother's cousin Rhonda did the logo. And what she did.
Why is that the start of every logo story? That's amazing.
Is it really? So she took 3 pennies and she drew circles. And then she did my grandfather, who still worked there. He was in his 80s, but he never did. He did the mail. But he came to work every day with a suit and a hat. He did. Aww. And he looked really serious, and he had a little hair because he was bald. And then my grandmother looked great.
Of course.
Penny. Whatever. And she was still worked there, And then my dad, who's running the business now, was in the third one, and he was frowning. And I'm like, Rhonda captured the family perfectly. And I'm like, we got to get rid of this logo.
That's an awesome story. And it's amazing how connected and attached people are to those things that they've created or someone important in their life has created. And they're blinded by how it can be a hindrance. And it's hard to, I guess, bring that up, if you will, right? So when you start with the brand strategy process and do the deeper diving into all of these different facets, 99.9% of the time, they realize the brand won't serve them anymore.
So you don't tell them, you basically show them by letting them change their own thinking on their own.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't need to tell them. They figure it out via the process that I go through. And they're like, I don't want that to represent me anymore. A lot of the times they come to me prepared with, I know this isn't working, but when we go through it and they're like, I think I have this idea for their brand and their logo, and I really want to use it. And I expressed how I'm in my, no offense, but I'm in my grumpy old man era where I'm just direct.
Yeah, no, when you said grumpy old man in your LinkedIn post, I'm like, I raised my hand and I did a comment. I'm like, no, I'm the grumpy old man.
And I know I'm a 47-year-old female, but it's just, I'm tired of the BS and I'm tired of sugarcoating, and I'm very direct to the point because I'm here to serve.
Yeah.
And I know that it's not going to serve you for me holding back and not sharing my expertise, my knowledge, my thoughts, my rationale, and my 12-page book on why this isn't a good idea. So that's the stance I take. And I love when they get the aha moments. That's kind of my favorite part. Yeah. So I love bringing them on that journey. That's a fun journey.
Well, when we were working on my brand with you and trying to figure out how do I organize this complex sausage factory I've created, not being attached to the sausage factory was the key. So when you were like, I don't understand what the hell you're talking about, and you helped me organize it in buckets of thought, I was done. I got there almost instantly. And then that led to what's coming soon, which is this finished website, finally. And the challenge, I think, for people, and I've never really been like this, to be honest. Like I will hold on to things, but I want to get rid of them quick and move on to what's next. And I think that's an entrepreneur thing. And I think the entrepreneur is like, we're moving forward at 150 miles an hour. And I think the challenge for the entrepreneur is sometimes somebody like you has got to stop them and say, you know it all, but that doesn't mean it's going to work the way you're doing it. Like, you're right. Your direction's right. What you're seeing coming is right. However, it doesn't make any sense to anyone else.
That's the most complex part of what I do. And for myself, as someone who helps someone messaging, that's hard for me to even explain what happens. But when I allow my clients to do that for me, I allow them to share, well, this is how it went down and this is how it helped me. Using their words makes it much easier. And that's something that everybody can use. But I always look at it like it's a clean slate. I'm a fresh person. I'm walking into your world.
Yeah.
What are you saying? And can I comprehend it? And if I can't comprehend it, chances are, not that I'm like the brightest tool, the brightest person out there, but chances are a lot of other people can't comprehend it. And that's what we need to get to, is that vantage point of, I have no clue what you do. Educate me, fill me in. And now that I'm completely lost, we need to organize this and make it make sense for the other person on the other end. And how can we simplify everything you're saying so it's just enough to intrigue them, for them to say, oh, that's exactly what I need. I don't need to be a rocket scientist either, but they're going to help me. They can help me. And that's all you need to trigger, is that they can help me get to where I want to get to. And that's the piece we're looking for every time.
So the way this played out in my experience with the family business is that I learned brand is not about a logo. Brand is about anything that's in relation to the marketplace in any aspect, from did they load the if it's a restaurant, did you load the paper towels upside down so it's hard to get them out of the thing? Like the details really matter. And I was sitting in this, my parents, it was called the showroom. So they had a tiny office and there was no room for me in the office. So I had a little like tray that they use for rattle samples where I put stuff in and I'm wandering around with this thing. And they have 4 round tables in the front and I'm out there and I'm looking around. I'm like, what the hell does this business do? And they had bibs that were nobody bought anymore. And some of them were like yellow. And I'm like, what's that here for? And then they had this stuff from France that was super expensive that sold really well. And then they had um, like these dresses and things that looked like they were from 1920. And I'm like, what the hell is this stuff here for? And then they had this new stuff from San Francisco that was really cool and different that looked weird for kids. And I'm like, what is going on? And I remember, and then they had the logo with the faces. And I didn't understand any of this stuff because I'm like 22 years old. But I'm just sitting there thinking, what is going on? I don't understand. And I said to my dad, I'm like, we got to change all this. And he's like, wait, what? Well, we did. And it completely, over a couple of years, was all gone, but not all gone. It was reformed, and anything that didn't need to be in there anymore was pruned out. So it wasn't just the logo, it was the entire product package got reformulated in real time through me being out in the market like a maniac, driving around with samples in a van, showing them to people, trying to figure out what the hell people buy right now. That happened organically and automatically. I didn't know what I was doing, but he let me do it. And I have to give him credit for that. But if I just said, this is how we're doing it, he would have said no. Instead, I just went and did it anyways. And he was like, oh, that's working. Keep going.
That's amazing, because a lot of the times it's putting trust and let someone doing it that allows you to get to where you want to be when you didn't even realize that's what you needed, right? A lot of times people are like, I didn't know I needed you until I know I needed you, right? Or I didn't know that's what I needed in order to grow until we did it and I figured it out. That's what it was. And it does have to be natural. It does have to flow. But I love that you did the market research. That's the key piece there, is like, are you going to buy this? Or are you going to buy this? Or are you going to buy this? And which one's selling? And then obviously, what's your greatest item? That's the one that you're going to push. A lot of the time, my clients, I'm like, I ask them those questions. I'm like, okay, so what are your offers? Let's turn over the stones here. What are your offers? What do you want to put out on the market? And they share them. And I'm like, and which ones are doing the best? Which ones are your strongest? And they're like, these ones. But then they share, I actually hate selling these ones.
Oh,
and then
so why
it's
are
like,
they there?
so then I'm like, well, then why are you pushing that one in the forefront to sell it if you don't enjoy it? And like, because that's the one that's selling. I'm like, well, but wait, if you push a different one in the forefront, have you tried it? Will that one sell? Right. And it's changing and aligning what you actually want to do and then backing it up with your positioning, your messaging, and everything, and building surrounding the sustainable way, right?
Yeah.
And what you actually want to do. I think that's the key too.
What you said is very interesting because I didn't do market research. So if I'd done market research, we would have filled it up with product lines that wouldn't have been selling in 2 years. Because what was selling at the time was at the end of the cycle. The reason that company took off was because I surfed a wave. So instead of doing market research and figuring out what should I sell, what I did was I just kept going. So I call this approach more money now, which is one of our daily rooms, because it's a business development, a strategic, creative approach where you're looking at what's coming next into the market or the world. And that's what happened. And I didn't no idea what I was doing, but I've been doing that my whole life. I just do it automatically. And what ended up happening was people said no for almost 2 years. So I knocked on doors with new stuff. And what they said was, here's the key to this. I just figured out they were talking. They said, oh my God, I love it. And I said, you want to buy it? And they said, no. And I'm like, why? They said, no one will buy that. I said, how do you know? They said, it's too expensive. That wasn't true. They wouldn't buy it. Why? Because there's something in retail called open to buy, which is I have to buy this product mix for my store, and my budget's 300 grand or 50 million or whatever. And I have to have this because this is what we buy. I don't have any more money left for your stuff, but I love it. Oh, but it's too expensive. It'll never work. So for some reason, I just kept going, and I kept calling and calling and calling like a maniac. And I showed and showed it. And then all of a sudden, people started buying this stuff around the country, and it sold. It's Howard Schultz with the $4 coffee. It's the same thing. So everybody's, oh, you can't sell a cup of coffee for $4. He's not thinking, yes, I can. He's thinking, I want this to be like Italy. Right. And this was what I was thinking is I want to go on vacation a lot and make a ton of money and not have to work for somebody. I didn't give a shit about the business at all. I wanted something, which was I wanted to go on vacation for a couple of months because it was a seasonal business. That's the only reason I stayed.
That's it makes me think of so many different things when it comes to positioning and understanding what it is you want. So you had your end game goal.
I did, yeah.
And that end game goal is the key piece to every brand.
Yes.
To make it work and last and survive. So you got your values, you got your end game goal. Is it a viable product? Is it something that it can sell and will sell and people could use? Yes. That you have the right formula. Now it's creating the path to get there to the end.
The challenge is time and judgment. And if anybody had come in like a consultant, screwed me. If a management coach had come in and I would have been screwed. If a marketing expert had come in, I would have been screwed and it would have failed because I would have been 2 years in and they would have said, it's not working. This is selling. You're going in the wrong direction. And I'd say, yeah, but they keep saying they like it. but they're not buying it. So because they're looking at the KPIs, they're looking at the results. I'm not looking at the results because I didn't care. I was looking at, I want to make this happen because I wanted the big showroom. That's what happened. So there was this asshole who was the top company in the market, and he used to throw his garbage out his back door. And my mother hated this guy. And he was disrespectful to my dad, who I thought was a great guy. And everybody loved my dad, and everybody hated this guy. He's such an asshole. He's like a Grant Cardone kind of guy. He really was, and he ran around. He's like, how's boutique going, Bob? Which was our little niche, Hey, and I remember looking, I'm like, I'm going to be in your showroom. And we did. He went out of business because he was selling all this crap nobody wanted to buy anymore. And we had the new stuff. And all of a sudden, a couple of years later, we're in the big room with 10 people working for us like he had. We switched places in the marketplace because I kept going. So it's an amazing story to me.
You need a lot of grit to keep going.
Or stupidity.
I think so a lot of times visions are presented to me and I don't know what it is, if it's intuitive or whatever, but when people share their vision, it's like I can see it and I can see it at the end as a success or I can't see it. And if I can see it as a success, I will help you and I will go on. If I can't, I feel like with integrity, I don't want you to invest a ton of money in me and not watch it happen. So I do try to really analyze that vision and if it can hold water, but I do depend on facts and data too. So, and sometimes you just got to take a risk or, keep going with it. That works too.
I think that the entrepreneur partnership with an integrator kind of operations person, a branding organizational kind of person, brand clarity, like you're running the brand clarity session every week as we get this campus done and out in the world. Lana Fink with the communication clarity session, like all those things. There's a partnership that comes together around all those different dimensions. And in the world, it's really complex. And I'm like, how did I do all this stuff by myself? And that's only my first story. I mean, that was the first one. I've been doing this stuff since I was that age entire life. It's exhausting, you know, and that was the 2020 moment for me where I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm looking for a permanent solution to this entrepreneur situation I've been in my whole life. And then I ended up trying to become an influencer on LinkedIn. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm doing everything they said. Why don't I? But you know, the first time, in November of 2020, my posts were getting thousands and thousands of views. I would have 40, 50, 60 comments and this massive conversation feed in my post because I set up a LinkedIn posting group. And then after a while, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I stopped doing it. And it's sort of, I watched the bubble, the bubble inflation come out of the thing. But then I had the group I was running with the free events for a week, Revenue Climber. It was Sales Sherpa, then Revenue Climber, then Solopreneur Inc. So we're talking about brands. Those brands were all wrong, but they were stepping stones to this.
They were necessary.
Necessary.
They were necessary. A lot of the times you have to go through this process in order to take the necessary steps to get to where you want to be. Again, I like to position myself where they've taken a lot of steps and now they're ready for that higher level.
Yeah.
And that's the brand that I'm building. It's the forever brand. And that's where I like to be. And
that's
on a perfect.
So we were talking about the Aspire conference today. So I saw Aspire a little while ago and I'm like, oh my God, it's one of these things. So it was David Goggins and Cody Sanchez, and I think they were talking about Grant Cardone. So they got all the celebrities, you know, and they're bringing them up on the big stage and the whole thing. And Brian is talking to a friend of his who was there, who dropped 50 grand on one of these programs. And then he's like, but I need another 25 grand. I'm going to mortgage my house to learn how to become a TEDx influencer speaker. And I'm like, they're good. They're good.
Oh yeah, their marketing is very good. I'm in it, and you get sold easily on so many products and so many things. I'm in marketing, and you're hitting all of my points.
Yeah,
and I'm still buying this, and I almost 99% sure it won't work. And I still spent my money. So that's the power of marketing. But here's my but: can we do it in a way that is in a positive light and not robbing people blind? Right?
That would be good. So that's a good start. You know, so Napoleon Hill taught me something important. He says, don't criticize something if you don't have a better alternative. I don't know if I have a better alternative, but I have an alternative. And that's what we're building here, is we have an alternative to that playbook. So you can do that playbook. And, you know, the fun thing about it for me is come in, I'll teach you. I know that playbook really well. I'm not doing it anymore. But if you want to learn the persuasion marketing playbook from Cialdini and Russell Brunson and Eugene Schwartz, Beyond Advertising, I'll teach it to you. I'm just not going to do it. So I'm not judging it. If you want to do that because it feels great and you love doing it, do it with us. But it's not what we're doing.
That's a reverse message, but yeah. Yeah, you have to know your lane, you have to know your values, you have to know what you want to put out there and push out there, and the bigger picture, the bigger vision, and keep that in perspective. I think that's the guiding parts of it all.
And I think, okay, so I'm gonna play it like this. So a reverse message would be if I did that for persuasion purposes, but I mean it. Because what I'm saying is we have 5 values. One value is you know the right answer for yourself. Nobody else. And second is you're responsible. Everyone's responsible for themselves. The second value is nobody knows the answer for another person. The third value of our group is guru follower relationships create division. So if somebody becomes the guru, you have a follower now. That's a division. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to have that happen, you know, in our group, because then somebody's giving an answer to somebody else because they know better. And then marketing without permission pushes people away. Marketing with permission's fine. Here, I'm telling you, I'm trying to sell you this. You want to learn about it? Oh yeah, you tell me. Great, go for it. Value 5 is spam clutters up communication. So if you're constantly spamming me in the community all the time with the stuff you're trying to sell because you have an angle, you're networking for getting something, you're just cluttering up all the communication. People can't figure out, why are you here? You're trying to do something, you're trying to sell me your stuff. You want
Yeah.
to sell me your stuff? Great. So I think spinning it back around and saying truthfully, if you want to come to what we're doing and you want to keep doing a lot of the marketing stuff, I think you will. I think a lot of people will. They're not going to make this full leap overnight in getting rid of all the marketing. Like, some people need to keep doing it. They need to get, maybe they're not ready to go full experience sharing. They need it still. I'm like, that's okay. I don't have a problem with it. I actually find it kind of fun sometimes. What I don't like is somebody spending 75 grand on something that's not going to work. I know it won't work.
So that's the integrity part of it, right?
Yes.
That's the moral integrity compass that's a hard no.
It's a hard no, and I have to call it out. And, again, I've been calling this stuff out for 2 years, but now I feel good about it because I'm like, well, I have an alternative. Before I was like creating an alternative. Now I feel like I have an alternative. We have an alternative. You don't have to do it like that.
Yep. There's many, many other ways to do it for sure.
And I think more and more people are going the direction we're going. So I don't feel like I'm inventing anything new. I think it was the same with the clothing stuff, where all of a sudden what was going on in the United States at the time was these people in San Francisco Bay Area were creating. So they were designers, and then they could manufacture because of China and the changes in manufacturing. So all of a sudden they could afford, and banks were factoring their accounts receivable, so they could afford to do it. And then the retailers on the coast, New York's, LA, they were trying to do something new in those populations. And we were in the Midwest of the country in Chicago area, 15, I ended up getting up to like 15, 17 states. They were a little behind, but not that far behind. And when that dam broke, it broke big. And all this stuff that had been popular for 20 years, 30 years started getting swept aside, or went into the malls, the discount malls. So all this expensive stuff was now in the discount malls. So the sales repping companies, like the guy that we displaced, that company, that was a big, they made millions selling raincoats. And all this stuff's in the shopping mall. You don't need a sales rep anymore. They're selling to 5 retailers. They were selling to 10, like 5,000. They had like 7,000 customers. They all went out of business. And the whole landscape got remade. And I was just right there at the right time. I didn't do that. I just wanted to go on vacation a lot. I couldn't get into a decent law school. And I'm like, so destiny, you're talking about destiny. That was the beginning of what led to this. It's a destiny thing. I didn't understand that at the time. I'm just like, oh my God, this job is horrible.
But you know what? That's a lot of people right now. They want something different, right? They don't want to stick in the 9 to 5. They don't want to do the mundane. They want to explore something new. And that's why there's so many entrepreneurs out there right now, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a high influx. But the grit, I think, is the key piece. There's a lot of pieces to shape an entrepreneur. But if you can get help to guide you and not do it solo, without it being someone who's influencing you and telling you exactly to do it this way because it worked for them, but keeping you aligned with your vision and your goals, I think that's a key piece there when it comes to aligning with your achievements.
We only have 1 more minute, and I want to end on the values, because what you said is key to me. And the core value to me is, don't give me advice. I don't need your advice. I need your experience. And this is what we were talking about today, is experience sharing. So when I say, I went through this, or I know this, or I figured this out, versus using the words you or we, now all of a sudden I can hear. But when people are saying you, I hear, I'm immediately like, don't tell me what to do.
It's like a protecting blocker.
it's a protecting blocker. And it's like, don't tell me what to do. And they're not. But I still react that way. And it's a subconscious program, I think. And I think it protects people from gurus.
That's fair.
Thank you for doing this.
All right.